You will never make enough money from content to pay your bills, but you might make enough money with content to pay your bills. I'm going to explain what I mean by this. I'm Chad Sanders at Chadsand on Instagram. You know me as blah, blah, blah. Let's get right into it. Okay. So, yesterday I was having a conversation with my favorite person in the world. And she said something to me that resonated, something that I know is true, even though I've been overlooking it for over 2 years at this point of running this business, which is that most people out there who have ambitions to be content creators think that content creators make money from the views that they get from their content. Now, that's true on some level. But most content creators, almost all content creators, do not make enough money from views or from brand partnerships or sponsorships to make a living to pay their bills in one of these cities that we live in here in the United States, or probably almost anywhere. And here's what I mean by that, okay? Let's break this down, because this is an important misunderstanding that I want to correct here and sort of set the record straight on. All right. So, first of all, let's define a content creator, okay? A content creator, I would say, is anybody who publishes content on social media apps with the intention of building an audience and getting engagement so that they can do ... make money, build platform, maybe sell things in the future, etc., etc., etc. Most people are under the misunderstanding that the main way that people in that bracket, in that status class, make money is because the apps pay them a meaningful amount of money for all the engagement and the views that they get on their apps. Now, each one of these apps has its own separate sort of design system for how it pays its creators, right? Which is to say, on YouTube, you get a split of ad revenue for your content on YouTube, right? Based on some calculation, based on your number of subscribers, the content hours that you get, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. On Instagram and on Meta, there are like engagement brackets, basically. So if you have up to this amount of followers, if you get up to this kind of amount of engagement, you get, let's call it like $5,000 for 3 months. That's about where I'm at on the Instagram level of engagement, right? But that's a specific number I just said to you, isn't it? $5,000 for 3 months, okay? Which equates to $20,000 a year, which is, I need not tell you, not enough money to live in New York City where I live, okay? Now, I got about 70,000 followers on Instagram. I get pretty tremendous engagement there organically, which would put me in one of the higher status brackets as far as creators go. I would say I'm in sort of like the upper middle class of creators. Once you go past where I'm at and you get into the hundreds of thousands of followers, you're kind of in another status class, but we'll leave that over there, because if you're watching this, I presume that you're probably around where I'm at or on your way to where I'm at. And so $20,000 a year, that's a nice, that's a nice clip. Like, that's nothing to sniff at. That's some nice cash to add on top of whatever else you have going on. It's not enough to pay your bills. It's not enough to make a living in the United States. And so creators actually make money by having service offerings that underpin what they do as creators. In other words, when you think about a creator, okay, you might be thinking about an influencer of some kind who basically comes to the internet, makes videos, anything from TikTok dances to, verbal spiels where they talk about what's happening in their day, in their world. I got to be honest, there's a lot of pejorative connotations with creators, and I think some of them are super real. I think about people who come to the internet. They have this sort of desperate anger in their voice. They yell at people and sort of like wag their finger. And it's almost like there's a cultish element of it where they're at the top of something, looking down at the rest of us and wagging their finger, telling us why the rest of us are living life wrong. I could go on and on and on about all the ways that I think it's sick and broken, but that's not really the point of this video. The point of this video is to say many of those people, that desperation, that desperate anger that you hear in their voice, it's a strain because they are trying to get themselves to a viewership level where they will be able to make enough money from what they do. And I'm talking about people who have 100,000, 200,000, 500,000 followers on these apps who don't make enough money from views to pay their bills. It's a strain because they think, if I can just get over the hill, get myself to 1 million followers, then I'll make enough money from these apps to be able to make a living where I live. But it's sort of like it's a carrot and a stick that the apps keep dragging further and further away from you as you chase it. They're in a casino chasing something. They're never going to get there. Smart creators, okay? The type of creators that I think are making smart decisions on these apps, and the type that I am trying to be myself, the kind of behavior I'm trying to take on myself. They use the apps to talk to an audience so that the audience understands they have something to offer them, something that they can make a meaningful trade on. Meaning, I'll use myself as an example, if I may, okay? I don't even have the views for cash settings turned on these apps, right? On Instagram and TikTok, I have enough followers to do so, but I just have chosen not to. It's not even like I'm better than it or something. It's literally just like I haven't ever focused on turning on that apparatus because the money is so small on those apps for views that it hasn't grabbed my attention. And on YouTube, eventually I will turn on those settings on this app, and I'll probably get a small trickle of cash when I hit a few thousand subscribers on this thing, but not enough to pay my bills. But the point I want to make is I use my presence on these apps to make it clear to people how I see the world, what I know how to do, okay, what I can offer them, and where to find me. And I do it over and over and over again because as I have done it repetitively, I have found, wow, there are so many people out there who want what I have to offer. I have to keep ringing the bell so that they can hear the signal, so they can see where I am, so they can come to me and say, hey, can I have that? And offer me their cash. That's my business, okay? That is something that I think needs a different definition than what we think of as a content creator. Because when I think of a content creator, I think of somebody who keeps coming back to these apps, right? And there's some people who are excellent at it. They're so excellent that they do have millions of followers. And so they are able to leverage brand deals, sponsorships, cash for views in a way that is enough for them to pay their bills and then some. But that is such an enormously small, that's an oxymoron, that is such a tiny microscopic percentage of the people who are trying to do that, who are actually able to accomplish that. Now, there's something available on the other end of the spectrum to the person who is willing to steadily grow a followership, right, an audience on these apps, that they are talking to frequently and making offers for things that are more expensive, that cost more, that are worth more than a view. Meaning, let me make that more material. If you are a carpenter, okay, I don't know why I chose that. I don't know if anyone out there is a carpenter, but hear me out. You do not, as a carpenter, need 1 million followers so that the apps will pay you for your views to make a living. You need enough people who feel confident, who trust that you know what you're doing as a carpenter and where to find you. You need enough of those people to exist because they see you every day, they hear your voice every day, they see what you have to say about the carpentry business you have, such that they will reach out to you when they need a carpenter. You need enough of those people in mass so that you can sustain and grow your business. And a very simply designed but challenging to execute way to make that happen is to return over and over to these apps and just tell people, here I am, here's what I do, here's something interesting about the carpentry business, or here's something interesting about your carpentry needs, or here's some ways that people make mistakes when they're looking for a carpenter, or here's some ways that carpenters make mistakes when they're undertrained and serving their clients, etc., etc. You come back, you tell them over and over, and as your carpentry brand grows in its followership, in its subscriber base, right? Never mind getting cash for your views. Your consumer base will grow in a way where you can talk directly to your consumers and you never have to go through an ad agency. You never have to buy an ad you never have to buy a TV advertisement. You never have to buy an ad on somebody else's website, right? You never have to buy an ad anywhere if you become strong enough at getting organic traffic for people to see and be exposed to your carpentry brand. Do you need 10 million followers for that? Do you need 1 million? Do you need 50,000? No. You could do it with 1,000 followers. If you're consistent, if you're dialed in, if you're focused on your market, on your audience, and if you use geotagging in your hashtags to tell the algorithm where you are, where your carpentry business exists, so that the people who see your videos are actually accessible clients for you. That is all to say, I do not care what content creators, people who do views for cash, I don't care what's trending in their industry. I don't care what's working in their industry. That's not a way to make a living, in my opinion, unless you have the resources to pour so much into producing the content and advertising the content that you have an advantage that sets you apart from all those other content creators who are competing in that space. What I think is a reasonable and smart way, an exciting way to make a living, is if you know what you have to offer your audience and you use these apps to talk to them every day and tell them what you know and where you are and how to find you, and then you take those relationships off the app to serve them as your clients and grow your business. And then you reinvest what you make from doing so back into producing your content and running your business. That's it. Be that kind of content creator, not the other kind. Now, how does that all feed into vertical series and micro dramas? Well, a vertical series is like a TV show made in the style of content. You know, scrolly content, 30 seconds, 90 seconds, a minute, 3 minutes per episode. Some people are not going to feel the confidence or have the skill set to come and just talk to a screen the way that I do and many others do in order to talk to their audience. Maybe they need something else that still feels like it has a voice, still feels like it's clear, but it's not as bare as just sitting there and talking to the phone, right? That could be for your brand, for your business, that could be your micro drama. That could be your vertical series. You're a carpenter. You could make a short episodes about someone going to different houses in your city and servicing the people who have carpentry needs, right? What kind of characters you run into, what kind of needs people have, all the varieties of different things that you do in carpentry needs could be explored in these episodes, so that you don't feel the vulnerability of just talking straight to a screen, but you still get the point across that you know what you're doing, your business stands for something. It's like a long extended commercial, but one that captures and attracts the audience instead of one that tries to tap them on the shoulder to get their attention. That's why I say that anyone in any business could stand to have a vertical series today. It gives you the opportunity to attract an audience, maintain their attention, give them your offerings, and grow with chances for virality. So if you want to learn how to do that, come see me this Friday, 6 o'clock Eastern time, at How to Launch Your Vertical Series in 2026. The link to sign up is in this caption. It's also in the link in my bio on my Instagram at Chadsand. I will see you there. Goodbye.